Hello, church family. Welcome to today's Sunday school lesson. We are in session 11 entitled Alert. And our key idea this week is Jesus is coming back. And we are going to be in Matthew chapter 24, verses 36 through 51. This actually goes right along with what Brother Richard preached on last Sunday morning and what I taught on last Wednesday night. This is actually the same passage that I used for teaching last Wednesday night. But we're going to be talking about the end times and the return of Jesus. And so when we talk about the end times, many people are afraid. They are fearful of the end of the world. And we have people who are preppers and survivalists and doomsday preppers, and they build bunkers underground and they stock it with food. People are scared of the end. We're scared of the apocalypse. We're scared of the end of all things. Armageddon is another word used for the end times. But they they find it to be a fascinating subject, and they get ready for it and they study it. We read books and watch movies that portray the final days of our planet. Doomsday theories abound. It's not anything uncommon. People in general want to know the when, how, who, and what regarding the end of the age. In that, we are not too far removed from Jesus' first disciples. So, take a second. What is it about the end of the world that fascinates you? For me, I am not super concerned with the end of the world. Every generation that has come before us currently in 2026 thought that their generation would be the last generation before Jesus came back, before the end of the world. And looking at history, I'm just not concerned. And if I read the Bible, it tells me to be alert, but it doesn't tell me to worry. Jesus says, therefore, don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow will worry about itself. Today has enough trouble of its own. So I don't think about the end times very often. I think of Revelation, and I think of the imagery there of the new heaven and the new earth and this new glorious Jerusalem that's going to be so many miles cubed and high and everything else, and it's insane to try to picture, and I can't. And so I'm not frightened about the end of the world. I'm not fascinated by it either. I am just trying to be faithful to Christ in the meantime. And so I said this on Sunday night or Wednesday night. I'm not really concerned with whether or not Jesus's millennial reign will be after the rapture or before the rapture, or there won't be a rapture at all. Those things don't concern me very much because I know who I believe in, and he tells me to be alert, and so I'm going to be alert. I'm not going to be looking around for things that aren't worth worrying about because of what he says in this passage. So after Jesus has confronted everyone in the temple, the Pharisees have confronted Jesus multiple times, he leaves the temple, never to return again. As he left, he spoke of the coming destruction of both the temple and Jerusalem. And so they go to the Mount of Olives. And you remember from Sunday morning that Brother Richard called this the Olivet Discourse, meaning he was preaching on and around the Mount of Olives just outside of Jerusalem. And so Jesus begins speaking about the end times, and he says in verse 36, let's read together. Now concerning that day and hour, no one knows, neither the angels of heaven nor the Son, except the Father alone. As the days of Noah were, so the coming of the Son of Man will be. For in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah boarded the ark. They didn't know until the flood came and swept them all away. This is the way the coming of the Son of Man will be. Then 2 men will be in the field, and one will be taken and one will be left. Then 2 women will be grinding grain with a handmill. One will be taken and one will be left. Therefore be alert, be on guard, be watchful, since you don't know what day your Lord is coming. But know this, if the homeowner had known what time the thief was coming, he would have stayed alert and not let his house be broken into. This is why you are also to be ready, because the Son of Man is coming at an hour that you do not expect. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his master has put in charge of his household, to give him food at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whom the master finds doing his job when he comes. Truly I tell you, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. But if that wicked servant says in his heart, my master is delayed, and starts to beat his fellow servants and eats and drinks with drunkards, that servant's master will come on a day he does not expect him, and at an hour that he does not know. He will cut him into pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Of course, that last verse is referring to hell. So we've read this. We're going a little past where actually I stopped on Wednesday night, but we're reading this about the end times and what Jesus says, and he says to be alert because the Son of Man will be coming back at an unknown hour. So let's begin reading for our first section, verses 36 through 41. Now concerning that day and hour, no one knows, neither the heaven nor the Son, except the Father alone. So first off, the timing is going to be unknown to all of us. No one knows, neither the angels of heaven nor the Son, even Jesus himself, does not know when God is going to send him back to earth to resurrect the church and to establish his kingdom reign. This makes any speculation that we have on our part totally foolish. There's no point in us doing it. There's nothing that we will gain by trying to do it. There's nothing that we can gain by trying to go, oh, well, this prophecy and this prophecy and this prophecy have all lined up, so maybe the end of the world will be June 23rd, 2026. That's not going to happen. And the thing is that it almost belies the possibility that if someone were to say the world is going to end on X date or Y date, then it would be delaying the end of the world because that person would then know the end of the world and then would be putting it off. Now, is that true? Is that how God works? Probably not. But we are not to know, to the point that Jesus himself does not know that appointed time. So if it hasn't happened yet, it's not the appointed time. So therefore, our command is to continue to be watchful. So the Father alone, the unknown timing reveals Jesus' voluntary limitation of his divine attributes, his divine attribute of omniscience. He knows all things. He is purposely not knowing, shutting his mind off to the date that he is supposed to come back. He's voluntarily doing that. It's not being obscured from him by the Father. Jesus is obscuring it himself. His divine, so he doesn't know when he is going to come back. As the days of Noah were, verse 37, as the days of Noah were, so the coming of man will be, coming of the Son of Man will be. What does that mean, days of Noah? So the timing of Jesus' second coming is going to be like the arrival of the flood. It's going to be unexpected. It's going to be unknown. When it started flooding in the book of Genesis, in the account of Noah, it was unexpected. They had never seen rain before. It was new and completely unexpected. In Noah's day, people were going about their business and doing everything that they normally do when the rain started to fall. And they ignored the warnings of God's judgment. That's going to be similar to the world today when Jesus comes back, that people are just going to be going out and about, eating, drinking, marrying, and giving in marriage until the day that Noah boarded the ark. And so it says the coming of the Son of Man. If you don't know what Son of Man means, that comes from the book of Daniel, and it's Jesus's favorite way to describe himself in the Gospels. It also reflects both his full humanity and his deity. So he is the Son of Man. He is fully human. He's also the Son of God, fully divine. Verse 39. They didn't know until the flood came and swept them all away. This is the way the coming of the Son of Man will be. Then 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken and one left. 2 women will be grinding grain with a handmill, one will be taken and one left. It's implied here that the ones that are taken are believers and the ones that are left behind are not. And so this is saying that believers will be raptured, will be taken up by the Son of Man, swept away in a good way. And the coming of the Son of Man will be just like the flood. It will be unexpected on a day we don't know. So, what do we learn about God's plans for Jesus' return in these verses? Well, I believe that we're learning that God, since God has a heart for humanity, and earlier in this chapter, it says that the gospel, Jesus says the gospel will be preached all over the world. Well, we haven't reached every nation. And until we reach every nation, I believe that Jesus won't come back until Christians have at least spread the gospel unto every nation in the world. And so because we know that God has a plan for humanity and God has a desire for mankind to come to him. And so that's why we as Baptists, especially as Southern Baptists with the International Mission Board and the North American Mission Board, and with Southern Baptists of Texas, we have Reach Texas offerings that we do as well. We are so dedicated and committed to providing for missionaries to make sure that the gospel is taken into the world. I used to think of missionaries as an old time thing. That's something that happened when, long before I was a kid. Missionaries sailed on big ships and they went to foreign countries that had never had technology or health care or anything like that. And then I learned that modern day missionaries are doing the exact same thing with a little bit more technologically advanced methods, with Bible translator apps and things like that. But we have so many more resources now that we're actually more effective now in our missionary outreach than we were 100 years ago. We're able to reach more people more quickly, and we're able to teach pastors that speak the native language more effectively about the Gospels so that they can be preaching to their own communities. So we learn that God's plans for Jesus' return are obscured to us. They are purposely not known to Jesus, and that they're going to be unexpected. God is delaying it for some reason. If he hasn't come back yet, he's delaying it on his end for some reason. And so, how do the two illustrations here give us better understand the nature of Jesus' return? It's going to be unexpected. We're not going to know when it happens. There's going to be maybe a trumpet sound. The scriptures talk about a trumpet sound. We're not going to know, however, until it happens. We're not going to know when it's going to happen. Because of this, Jesus tells us to be alert. This is our second section, verses 42 through 44. Therefore, be alert, be on watch, be on guard, be watching. There's a line from a very popular video game that says, "Watch the skies, traveler." That's what it's talking about. Be alert, be watching be watching for it, be excited for it, but don't be worried about it. Just be alert, since you don't know what day your Lord is coming. But know this, if the homeowner had known what time the thief was coming, he would have stayed alert and not let his house be broken into. Now, who is this homeowner? Well, this homeowner is referring to us, because if we had known, so this is referring to a homeowner would not leave his house if he knows that a thief was planning on coming. Well, a homeowner is this homeowner is us, and if we know the exact date when Jesus is going to come back, well, then we're just going to live however we want to until the day before, and then we can just say, "Oh, you know what? I want to follow Jesus. I'm going to be made righteous." No, that's not what Jesus wants. Jesus wants faithful followers in spite of his return. He wants faithful followers on this side of the return, not on the near side of his return. So Jesus tells us to be alert, be ready. So he would have stayed alert, not let his house be broken into. But this is why you also need to be ready, because the Son of Man is coming at an hour that you do not expect. Jesus is going to come back when we don't expect it. So we need to make sure that we are ready by living our lives as God intended, by reading his word, having a relationship with Christ, being saved, but then also doing good works through that salvation and preaching the gospel to all nations, making disciples of our family members and our friends and into our community, taking the gospel all across the globe and being faithful to that. So why is it important to be ready? Because we don't want to be caught off guard and be caught not saved. The world needs to be saved for Jesus' return so that more people can go to heaven and less people can go to hell. And then finally, be faithful. Be this faithful servant. Who then is a wise and faithful, this is verse 45. Wise and faithful servant. This is the first servant provides a picture of what faithfulness to God looks like as we wait for Jesus' return. Pay attention. Whom his master has put in charge of his household to give them food at the proper time. Blessed is that servant whom the master finds doing his job when he comes. So be doing good works now through your faith. Use your faith to do good works because it's what we're commanded to do. Truly, I tell you, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. He's going to give him even more responsibility, even more blessing. But if that wicked servant says in his heart, my master is delayed, and we use that delay to put off good works, to put off being obedient, to put off even being saved, we if we start acting wickedly, there's punishment for that. I have a note here about our text. The wicked servant used the master's delay as an excuse to sin. It's the same idea as when the cat's away, the mice will play. This is when there's no one here overseeing us. We can live how we want to and go, oh, you know what? It's not going to be tomorrow. It's not going to be next week. We can live how we want to. And I'll get my life together. I'll get my life right with Christ before he comes back. It's that same kind of idea. But because we don't know. We don't know how long we could go on doing that. So that's why Jesus says, don't do that. Be ready. So if he starts to beat his fellow servants and eats and drinks with drunkards, that servant's master will come on a day he does not expect him, and at an hour he does not know, and he will cut him to pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, which is, again, is that imagery of hell. So in order to be prepared for Jesus' return, you must be saved. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. For people to be prepared for the millennial reign of Christ, they need to know Jesus now. There's not going to be time later. There's not going to be an instance later where that can be made right. Now, if you are a premillennialist, you believe that the rapture will happen before Jesus' return or his earthly kingdom, and you might believe that there will be 7 years where those who do not believe will be left behind, but they will begin to believe, and Revelation does support this. They will begin to believe and be saved before Jesus comes back for that millennial reign. Great, awesome. But it's during that millennial reign that the judgment day will happen, and then that millennial reign happens. And so we need to be ready for the coming, because what if it's not a premillennial rapture? What if it is an amillennial rapture, an amillennial rapture? What if it is a post-millennial rapture is what I meant to say. I don't know how many people are actually post-millennials now. Again, I know what they all mean, but my eschatology is not super firm in any one of them. But how are you preparing yourself for Jesus' return? Are you being obedient? Have you been saved? Are you saved? And if you are saved, what are you doing with your salvation? Is it just your ticket for the rapture? Or have you been using that gift of salvation to win hearts for the kingdom, to expand God's kingdom, and make sure that you are doing good works for the kingdom? That's the challenge this week, is to be ready. And if you are saved, then get involved in ministry. And if you're involved in ministry, great. Keep doing that. You're ready, stay ready. If you are not, if that does not describe you, then I would encourage you to be saved, to come to faith in Christ, and then from there, do good works. That's what James tells us. The book of James says that faith without works is dead. That doesn't mean that you're saved by your works, but it means that your faith ought to spur you to good works. Your faith ought to cause you to do good things because of who your faith and trust is in. Thank you so much for being with me today. I look forward to worshiping with you very soon. Bye-bye.